Zola had just turned 20, but it didn't feel like a birthday at all. The small house in Lusaka that once smelled of her mother's cooking now smelled like anger. Her mother stood in the doorway shouting, "You've brought shame to this family." Her father didn't even look at her. He just sat quietly, his face turned away, as if she were invisible. Zola tried to speak, her hands trembling over her small baby bump. "Mama, I didn't plan this. Please just let me explain." But her mother's voice cut through her words like a knife. "Explain what? That you got pregnant and the boy ran away. You are a disgrace." Zola's heart broke a little more with every word. The same parents who once praised her for being top of her class now treated her like a stranger. Her younger sister Rena stood by the wall recording everything on her phone, pretending to be just checking something. But Zola knew she was filming. The humiliation burned through her chest. Her father finally spoke, his voice low and cold. "Pack your things and leave. If you can make adult choices, you can live with them." And just like that, on the morning she turned 20, Zola was handed a small suitcase instead of a gift. No hug, no blessing, just silence and shame. As she stepped outside, the sky opened up with heavy rain, soaking her hair and clothes. Neighbors peeked through their windows, whispering. Someone even said, "What a pity, such a pretty girl wasted." Zola held her belly and tried not to cry, but her lips trembled as she whispered to the tiny life inside her, "We'll survive, baby. I promise." She started walking down the muddy street, suitcase dragging behind her, lightning flashing in the distance. She didn't know where she was going. All she knew was that she had no one left, but somehow she still had hope. The first few nights after being thrown out were the hardest of Zola's life. She found an old bus terminal near the edge of Lusaka, broken benches, shattered windows, and the faint smell of rust and rain. That became her home. She would curl up on a wooden bench, hugging her small suitcase and her growing belly, listening to the sound of rats moving in the dark. Her phone had died days ago, and she had no charger, no money, no one to call. The nights were cold, the wind sharp, but every time she felt her baby move, she whispered, "It's okay, my love. Mama's still here." Days turned into weeks. Zola walked the streets during the day, searching for any small job. Most people looked at her belly and turned her away. One afternoon, while sitting outside a roadside cafe, she saw a woman struggling with a pile of dirty dishes. Without thinking, Zola got up and offered, "Can I help you? I don't need much. Just food, please." The woman, whose name was Auntie Maya, looked at her tired face and nodded. From that day, Zola began washing dishes behind the cafe, her hands raw and cracked from the cold water and soap. She earned just a few coins each evening, but it was enough to buy a little bread or porridge. When customers left food on their plates, Zola didn't waste it. She carefully packed leftovers into a small plastic bag and carried them back to the bus station. Sometimes Auntie Maya would quietly hand her a piece of chicken or a cup of tea, saying, "You're too young to be carrying the world on your shoulders, my girl." Those small acts of kindness kept Zola going. At night, under the flickering streetlight near the terminal, she would take out a small notebook she had carried since school. With a borrowed pen, she wrote words she hoped her child would one day read. "One day, I'll show them who I am. One day, we'll have our own home." Her handwriting was shaky, but her heart was steady. She refused to let the pain destroy her. Rain sometimes poured through the broken roof, soaking her blanket, but she still woke up each morning, wiped her tears, and went back to the cafe. Slowly, coin by coin, she began saving a few kwacha inside an old biscuit tin she kept hidden under her bag. Every time she added a new coin, she smiled a little. It wasn't much, but it meant she was fighting. One evening, Auntie Maya handed her an old blanket and said softly, "You remind me of myself when I had nothing. Don't stop fighting, Zola." Zola looked up, eyes filled with tears, and whispered, "Thank you, Mama Maya. I won't." That night, as she wrapped herself and her belly in the warm blanket, she closed her eyes and felt her baby kick. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone. She didn't know how, but deep down, she believed her story wasn't over yet. The night the pain started, Zola was sitting outside the old bus terminal, counting her coins and rubbing her swollen belly. It had been months since she left home, and she had learned to live on very little. But that night, a sharp pain hit her so suddenly that she dropped the coins and gasped. The second pain came harder, stealing her breath. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. "Not now," she whispered, clutching her stomach. "Please, baby, not here." She started walking toward the nearest clinic she knew, almost a 20-minute walk away, stopping every few steps as the contractions grew stronger. Cars passed, people stared, but no one stopped to help. Rain began to fall, cold and heavy, By the time she reached the clinic gates, she could barely speak. The guard shouted, "We're closed. Come back in the morning." Zola cried out, "Please. I think my baby's coming," but he turned away, pretending not to hear. Zola sank to the ground, her dress soaked, tears mixing with the rain. Then, out of nowhere, a young nurse appeared, her white uniform half covered by a plastic raincoat. "Oh my God, are you in labor?" she said, kneeling beside her. Zola nodded weakly. The nurse shouted for help, and together they got her inside. Her name was Miriam. She held Zola's hand the entire time, whispering, "Breathe, my dear. You're not alone. You can do this." Hours later, through screams and tears, Zola heard the most beautiful sound she had ever known, her baby crying. Miriam smiled and said softly, "It's a boy." Zola looked at him, tiny and perfect, and her world stopped. She cradled him against her chest and whispered, "You're my reason now, my little Tando." In that moment, all the pain, the rejection, the cold nights, they disappeared. All she saw was hope in her baby's eyes. Miriam didn't leave her side even after the birth. She helped her clean up, fed her, and made a few calls to find a small place for her to stay. Within a few days, Zola and baby Tando moved into a tiny room near the market, just one bed, a small stove, and a cracked mirror. But to Zola it felt like heaven. She finally had a roof over her baby's head. With the little money she had saved, she bought a few second-hand clothes from the market and began reselling them outside her room. At first, it was slow. Some people laughed at her, saying, "A single mother trying to run a business?" But she didn't care. Every morning, she strapped Tando to her back with a colorful chitenge cloth and went out with her basket of clothes. When the sun burned or the rain fell, she kept working, whispering to her son, "One day, baby. One day, they'll see who your mama really is." Each sale, each smile from a stranger, each tiny laugh from Tando gave her new strength. She was no longer just surviving, she was starting to live again. Months passed, and Zola slowly built a quiet rhythm to her new life. Every morning, she tied baby Tando to her back and set up her small stand near the market, laying out second-hand clothes she had cleaned and folded neatly. She wasn't rich, but she was surviving. Each day ended the same way, tired but grateful, watching her son's tiny chest rise and fall as he slept beside her. One hot afternoon, while Zola was sorting her clothes, she heard laughter and music coming from a nearby phone shop. A crowd had gathered around the screen, watching a video on social media. Her heart stopped when she saw her family's house on the screen, the big white gate, the decorated garden, the golden lights. It was her sister Rena's engagement party. The place looked like a movie. Tents, flowers, a live band, and expensive outfits. Rena stood beside her fiancé in a sparkling dress, holding champagne while people clapped and cheered. Someone in the crowd said, "That's Rena Mwansa, her parents really did well. She's the pride of their family." The words hit Zola like a knife. She quietly stepped closer, pretending to be just another curious onlooker. The camera panned to her parents. Her father smiled proudly, shaking hands with guests. Her mother held the microphone, glowing with joy. "We raised 2 daughters," she said into the mic, laughter in her voice. "One we're proud of, and one we don't speak about." The guests laughed. The crowd at the shop laughed too, not knowing the woman standing behind them was the one they didn't speak about. Zola felt her knees weaken. Her vision blurred, but she forced a small smile, pretending she wasn't affected. As soon as the video ended, she quietly walked away, her heart breaking all over again. That evening, back in her small room, she sat on her bed with baby Tando in her arms. The borrowed phone she had used to watch the video lay beside her. The video kept replaying in her head, her mother's laughter, her father's smile, Rena's shining ring. She wiped her tears quickly so they wouldn't fall on Tando's tiny face. "It's okay, my baby," she whispered, rocking him gently. "They can forget me, but I'll never forget who I am." She looked around the room, the cracked wall, the flickering bulb, the smell of baby powder and old fabric. It wasn't a mansion, but it was full of love. She pressed a kiss on Tando's forehead and whispered again, softer this time, "You're my pride now. You're all I need." Outside, laughter from the market drifted through the window, but inside, there was only silence. The kind that comes when a heart breaks quietly but still chooses to keep beating. It was a hot afternoon, and Zola was sitting outside her small room, fanning baby Tando while he slept in a basket beside her. The market was quieter than usual, so she took a break and borrowed a neighbor's old phone to scroll through Facebook. She rarely went online anymore. It reminded her too much of the world she'd lost, but sometimes she liked to see baby videos or quotes that gave her hope. As she scrolled, a notification popped up. One new message. The profile picture was blank, and the name didn't ring a bell. She opened it slowly, thinking it might be a scam. The message read, "Is this Zola Mwansa? I've been looking for you." Her heart skipped a beat. Nobody used her full name anymore. Not the market women, not even Auntie Maya. Only one person used to say it that way. Her hands began to shake. She clicked on the profile. No photos. No details. Just one more message coming in. "It's Cairo. Please don't close this. I need to explain." Zola froze. Her mind went blank. Cairo. The name she hadn't said out loud in almost 2 years. The man who had promised. "I'll come back for you, Zola. I swear." The man who never did. The man she waited for until her parents threw her out. Her chest tightened. Memories came rushing back. His smile, the way he used to hold her hand, the way he promised they'd build a future together. She kept reading. "I didn't leave you. My father sent me abroad suddenly for school. They took my phone and blocked everything. I tried to reach you, but when I came back, you were gone. I looked everywhere. I'm home now, and I need to see you. Please, Zola." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't know if they were from anger or shock. She whispered to herself, "Now you want to talk? After everything?" She looked at sleeping Tando, his small chest rising and falling, and her heart twisted. The boy had Cairo's eyes. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to tell him about the nights she spent alone, the hunger, the pain, the rain. But another part of her, the wounded part that still remembered love, wanted to believe him. After a long silence, she wiped her tears and did the one thing her heart told her to do. She deleted the message. Just like that. She set the phone aside, held Tando close and whispered, "We don't need him, baby. We made it this far on our own." But deep inside, her heart wouldn't stop racing. Because no matter how much she tried to move on, hearing Cairo's name again made the past she buried start to breathe. It was a normal morning at the market. Zola was arranging her clothes on a wooden table, baby Tando tied to her back, humming softly as she called out to passing women. The sun was hot, the air thick with the smell of roasted corn and car fumes. Everything felt ordinary, until the sound of engines suddenly filled the street. Loud, deep, powerful engines. People turned their heads as 3, 4, then 5 black SUVs rolled slowly into the market road. Their windows were tinted, tires spotless, and men in dark suits stepped out one by one. The whole street went silent. Vendors stopped selling. Even the kids chasing a football froze. "Who are they?" someone whispered. "It must be a politician," another voice said. "No, that's a rich man's convoy." Zola looked up from her stall, confused. The cars stopped right in front of her small table. Her heart started to pound. "What's happening?" she murmured, pulling Tando closer. The back door of the first SUV opened, and then she saw him. Hero. He stepped out slowly, wearing a crisp white shirt that caught the sunlight and a gold watch that gleamed with every move. His posture was confident, but his eyes, those same deep eyes she once loved, looked nervous as they searched the crowd. People started whispering louder. "That's him. That's Cairo Mthembu, the owner of Cairo Holdings." Zola's hands went cold. Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't move. It had been 2 years since she last saw him, but in that moment every memory came back. The laughter, the promises, the heartbreak. She felt dizzy, like the ground beneath her had disappeared. Cairo's gaze swept across the market until it landed on her. The noise of the crowd faded away. Time stopped. His lips parted slightly, and in a voice that trembled just enough for her to hear, he said, "Zola." Everyone turned to look at her. The woman selling tomatoes beside her gasped, "You know him." Zola couldn't speak. Her chest felt tight, her knees weak. She wanted to hide, but she couldn't move. She just stood there, frozen, clutching Tando's tiny foot with trembling fingers. Cairo took a step closer, ignoring the eyes of the crowd. "Zola," he said again, softer this time. His voice cracked. "It's really you." The market was buzzing now, people whispering, filming with their phones, murmuring things like, "She's the one he came for? And that's the tycoon's woman?" Zola's heart raced faster than ever. She looked at him, the man who had left her to face the world alone, standing in front of her like a scene from a movie. Everything in her screamed to run, but something deeper, something she couldn't explain, kept her still. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you here, Cairo?" He looked at her, eyes full of emotion, then glanced at Tando on her back. His jaw tightened and he whispered, "Because I should have never left you." The crowd gasped again. Zola's world spun. In that one moment, her quiet little life collided with the past she had tried so hard to forget, and nothing would ever be the same again. Zola stood frozen, her hands shaking as the crowd whispered around her. The man kneeling before her didn't look like the boy who had left with promises and dreams. Cairo was now a man, confident, powerful, yet trembling as he faced her. His eyes, filled with regret, met hers as he said softly, his voice breaking, "Zola, failed you once. Never again. This is my son, right?" The world around her seemed to fade. The noise, the stares, the phone's recording, everything disappeared. It was just her, him, and little Tando, whose wide eyes blinked at the stranger kneeling before his mother. Cairo reached out, hesitating, afraid she might pull away. But Zola didn't move. She watched as he gently lifted Tando into his arms, like something fragile and sacred. Tears rolled down his face as he whispered, "I missed his first words, his first steps, but I swear I won't miss another moment." Zola's chest tightened. So many emotions rushed through her. Anger, confusion, love, betrayal, hope, all tangled together. This was the man who had disappeared without a word, leaving her to face shame, hunger, and loneliness. But here he was now, holding her child like he was holding the world. "Cairo," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why now?" After all this time, he looked up at her, his eyes red and honest. "My father took everything from me, my phone, my freedom, my connection to you. He sent me abroad the same week I promised to come back. He said you were a distraction. He thought if he separated us I'd focus. But the whole time I was thinking about you. I looked for you the moment I came home." Zola's lips quivered. "You think sorry fixes everything. You didn't see me begging for work, you didn't hear people call me names, you didn't hold our son when he was sick." Cairo nodded, tears still falling. "I know. I can't change the past. But I can change everything from this moment on. I've built something now, something real, and it means nothing without you two in it." Zola's throat burned with tears she refused to let fall. The crowd stood in stunned silence, some recording, some whispering. But for Zola, none of it mattered. Her heart was fighting a war between pain and love. Tando reached out his tiny hand and touched Cairo's cheek, giggling softly. It broke something inside her. Cairo smiled through his tears. "Even if you never forgive me, Zola, I'll never stop trying to earn it. You and our son, you're my home." For the first time in a long while, Zola didn't know whether to cry, scream, or hold on, but deep down she felt something she hadn't in years. Oh. Zola tried to talk him out of it for days. She didn't want to face them, not after everything they said, not after the humiliation. But Cairo wouldn't back down. He looked her straight in the eyes and said quietly, "They need to see who they threw away. They need to see what they lost." So that Saturday morning, the sound of engines filled her old neighborhood. People rushed out of their houses, shading their eyes as a sleek convoy of black SUVs rolled down the dusty road. Zola sat in the front seat, her heart pounding. Her hands trembled as she clutched Tando, who was dressed neatly in a tiny blue outfit Cairo had bought him. When they stopped in front of her parents' mansion, Zola could hardly breathe. The same tall gate that had been slammed in her face years ago stood before her now, polished, shining, untouched by time. Her father stepped out, wearing his usual crisp shirt and proud face, looking annoyed at the commotion. "Who are you people?" he demanded, squinting at the cars. Before Zola could speak, Cairo stepped forward, calm and confident. He wore a tailored suit that caught the morning light. His voice firm but respectful. "Good afternoon, sir," he said. "I came to see the woman you called a mistake." The words hung in the air like thunder. Her father's mouth fell open. Her mother appeared at the doorway, holding a tray of tea, and nearly dropped it when she saw Zola. The neighbors were gathering now, whispering, pointing their phones, gasping at the sight of the powerful young tycoon standing beside the daughter they had disowned. Cairo Mwansa," her father stammered, his voice shaky now. "The owner of Cairo Holdings." "Yes," Cairo replied simply, his hand gently reaching for Zola's. "And this is Zola, the mother of my child. The woman you cast out." Zola's mother's face turned pale. She looked at Zola's expensive shoes, her elegant posture, the baby in her arms. The same daughter she had called a disgrace now stood before her, loved, respected, and protected by a man the whole town admired. Her father tried to recover his composure, forcing a weak smile. "You should have told us," he said quickly. "We didn't know." Cairo interrupted softly but firmly. You didn't want to know. She cried for you. She begged for your love. And you turned your backs on her. But even when you rejected her, she never stopped being worthy. Tears filled Zola's eyes. Her mother finally broke down, covering her face as she whispered, "Zola, my child, forgive us." Zola swallowed hard. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she stepped closer and said quietly, "I already did. But forgiveness doesn't mean I'll ever forget." The gate stood wide open now, the same one that had once been closed to her. Cairo placed his arm around her shoulders and nodded to his team. "Let's go," he said gently. As they drove away, Zola glanced back one last time, not with pain but with peace. The family that once threw her out now watched her leave, realizing too late that the girl they shamed had become everything they could ever be proud of. Inside the house, the air was heavy. Zola could feel her mother's nervous energy, the way she kept fidgeting with her scarf, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The living room, once her favorite place to sit and dream as a child, now felt strange and cold. Everything looked the same. The polished furniture, the fancy curtains, but the warmth was gone. "Please sit," her mother said, voice trembling. She glanced at Cairo's expensive watch, then at Zola's calm face, unsure how to act. A few minutes later, Zola's sister Louie walked in, still wearing her designer dress from her engagement photoshoot. When she saw Zola sitting there with Cairo beside her, her jaw dropped. "Zola, what is going on?" she asked, eyes wide. Cairo smiled politely, standing to shake her hand. "Good afternoon, Louis," he said smoothly. "I came to discuss something important with your parents." Her father straightened in his chair, trying to sound confident. "Oh, you're here for business?" "Yes," Cairo replied, his tone calm and deliberate. "I've just finalized the purchase of the land near your family's textile business. I'll be building a women's empowerment center there, in Zola's name." The room went silent. You could almost hear her mother's breath catch. "In her name," her father repeated, blinking rapidly. Cairo nodded. "Yes, to help young women who've been abandoned or rejected, just like she once was. It's her idea, actually. She wants to give others the second chance she never got." Her sister looked down, guilt written across her face. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, but her father's pride still refused to bend. He leaned forward, voice low and angry. "You embarrassed us, Zola," he said. "Do you know what people said about our family when you—" Cairo cut him off, his voice firm but controlled. "No, sir. You embarrassed yourself. The woman you threw out built herself before I could even find her." Her father's mouth opened, but no words came out. The truth hit him harder than any insult could. Zola looked at her parents quietly, her eyes soft but steady. "You didn't have to love me," she said, voice trembling slightly. "But you should have believed I'd survive." Her words broke something inside her mother. Tears spilled down her face as she whispered, "Zola, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Zola didn't gloat. She didn't smile in victory. She just reached for baby Tando, who giggled softly in her arms, a small sound that filled the heavy room with light. For the first time, her parents saw what they had truly lost. Not just a daughter, but the heart of their home. Months later, the sound of laughter and sewing machines fills the air. Zola walks through the bright halls of the brand-new Tando Women's Center, her name written proudly on the front gate. The walls are painted warm yellow, sunlight pouring through the windows. Dozens of young mothers sit at sewing tables, stitching colorful fabrics, smiling, learning, building a future. Zola moves from table to table, gently correcting stitches, sharing tips and encouraging them. "Don't rush it," she says softly to one girl. "Take your time. You're not just making clothes. You're rebuilding your life." In the courtyard, little Tando runs around, chasing butterflies, his laughter echoing through the open doors. Every time Zola sees him, her heart swells. He is her reminder of how far she's come, from sleeping on cold floors and washing dishes for coins to standing here, teaching others to stand again too. A young reporter approaches her with a microphone and a curious smile. "Miss Zola," she asks, "you lost everything once, your home, your family, your future. What kept you going?" Zola pauses for a moment, her eyes drifting toward her son, who is now showing Cairo the butterfly he caught. She smiles softly, her voice calm but powerful. "Love doesn't always save us," she says. "Sometimes survival does, and survival turns into power." The reporter lowers her mic, moved to silence. Outside, the camera pans out. Zola stands tall beside Cairo, the sunlight gleaming on her face, the sign behind her reading Tando Women's Center, founded by Zola Mwansa. As the screen fades, soft music plays and text appears. They threw her out to break her. She built an empire to heal others. Zola looks up at the sky, whispering with a smile, "We made it, my boy."